The lantern light flickered across weathered barn wood as Quinn Vaughn climbed the ladder to check on the hay supplies, thinking about nothing more pressing than whether he had enough feed to last the week when he heard the softest breath that was not his own. His hand froze on the top rung as his eyes adjusted to the dim loft space. And there she was, a young woman curled into the fresh hay like a wounded animal seeking shelter, her dark hair spilling across the golden stalks and her clothes dusty from what must have been days of hard travel. Quinn's heart hammered against his ribs as he pulled himself fully into the loft, moving carefully so as not to startle her. And in that moment, on a cool September evening in 1878, near Eureka Springs, Arkansas, his life changed forever without him even knowing it yet. He approached slowly, quietly, his boots making almost no sound on the wooden planks beneath the hay. She was sleeping deeply, the kind of exhausted sleep that spoke of desperation and relief at finally finding somewhere safe. Her face was smudged with dirt, and he could see the torn hem of her dress, the worn boots that had clearly walked many miles. Quinn crouched down, debating what to do. He could not just leave her here in the barn, not with the temperatures dropping at night and not knowing when she had last eaten. "Miss," he said gently, his voice low and careful. "Miss, you need to wake up now." She stirred slightly, a small sound escaping her lips, but she did not wake. Quinn reached out and touched her shoulder carefully, giving it a gentle shake. Her eyes flew open instantly, and she scrambled backward with a gasp of fear, her back hitting the barn wall as her hands came up defensively. "Easy now," Quinn said, holding both his hands up to show he meant no harm. "You are on my property, sleeping in my hay loft. I am not going to hurt you, but I need to know who you are and what you are running from." Her chest heaved as she stared at him, her green eyes wide and assessing. She looked to be in her early 20s, and despite the dirt and exhaustion, Quinn could see she was beautiful in a way that made his breath catch. After a long moment, she seemed to decide he was not an immediate threat because her shoulders relaxed slightly, though she remained pressed against the wall. "I am sorry," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I did not mean to trespass. I will leave right now. Please just let me go." "When did you last eat?" Quinn asked instead of responding to her plea. She blinked at him, clearly not expecting that question. "I do not remember," she admitted after a moment. "And where exactly are you planning to go at this hour with no food and no supplies?" She looked away from him, her jaw tightening. "That is not your concern." "Well, I am making it my concern," Quinn said, his tone firm but not unkind. "You can stay in my house tonight. I have a spare bedroom and I will make you something to eat. In the morning, if you still want to leave, I will not stop you. But I am not letting you wander off into the night in your condition." "I do not need charity," she said, lifting her chin with a pride that Quinn found himself admiring despite the situation. "No, but you need food and rest, and I have both to offer. My name is Quinn Vaughn. This is my ranch about 5 miles outside of Eureka Springs. I live alone, but I promise you on my honor that you will be safe in my home. The bedroom has a lock on the inside of the door if that makes you feel better." She studied him for a long moment, and Quinn held her gaze steadily, letting her see that he meant what he said. Finally, she nodded slowly. "My name is Katherine Dalton," she said quietly. "And I would be grateful for a meal and a place to sleep, just for tonight." "Katherine," Quinn repeated, trying out the name. "Can you stand?" She nodded and pushed herself up from the floor, but her legs wobbled badly, and Quinn stepped forward quickly to steady her. She flinched at his touch but did not pull away, likely because she needed the support. He could feel how thin she was through her dress, and anger flared in him at whatever circumstances had brought her to this state. "Easy," he said again. "Let me help you down the ladder. Can you manage that?" "I made it up," she pointed out. That was before I woke you from a dead sleep, Quinn countered. Just let me help. He went down first and then guided her, keeping one hand hovering near her back in case she lost her grip. When they were both safely on the ground floor of the barn, Quinn grabbed his lantern and led her toward the house. It was a modest ranch house, nothing fancy, but it was clean and well-maintained. He had built most of it himself over the past 3 years since he had bought this land. Inside, he lit a few more lamps and gestured toward the kitchen table. "Sit down before you fall down," he said. "I will make you something to eat." Katherine sank into one of the chairs gratefully, and Quinn set about preparing food. He sliced bread and cheese, poured milk from the cool box, and heated up leftover stew from his dinner. He set it all in front of her and then stepped back, giving her space. She stared at the food for a moment as if she could not quite believe it was real, and then she began to eat. She tried to maintain some dignity about it, but Quinn could see she was ravenous. He busied himself tidying the kitchen to give her privacy in her hunger. When she finally slowed down, he refilled her milk and asked, "Do you want to tell me what happened?" Katherine wiped her mouth with the napkin he had provided and met his eyes. "I was engaged to be married," she said quietly, "to a man in St. Louis. My father arranged it. I met him once before the wedding was planned and he seemed acceptable enough. But after the engagement, things changed. He became controlling, cruel. He would grab my arm too hard and say terrible things. I told my father, but he said I was being dramatic, that all men had their ways and I would learn to manage him." Quinn's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, letting her continue. "2 weeks before the wedding, my fiancé came to dinner at my father's house. He had been drinking, and when I tried to leave the room, he followed me. He pushed me against the wall and told me exactly what he was going to do to me once we were married, how he was going to break me of my spirit and make me obedient. He put his hands on me." She paused, her voice shaking slightly. "I fought him off, and in the struggle, a vase broke. My father heard the noise and came in, but instead of helping me, he was angry about the broken vase. He said I was causing problems and that I needed to learn to submit." "So you ran," Quinn said quietly. "So I ran," Katherine confirmed. "I took what money I had been saving secretly and some food, and I left in the middle of the night 3 weeks ago. I have been moving ever since, trying to get as far from St. Louis as possible. I ran out of money 5 days ago, and I have been walking and hiding ever since. When I saw your barn tonight, I just needed somewhere to sleep where I felt hidden." Quinn sat down across from her, his mind working through everything she had told him. "Your father will be looking for you, and your former fiancé." "I know," she said. "That is why I cannot stay anywhere long. I need to keep moving." "Where are you trying to go?" "I have an aunt in Texas," Katherine said. "Outside of Fort Worth. I have not seen her in years, but she was always kind to me when I was a child. I thought perhaps she would take me in, let me work to earn my keep. It was the only place I could think of." "That is a long way from here," Quinn observed. "And you have no money and no supplies. You will never make it." "I have to try," Katherine said, her voice firm despite the exhaustion in her eyes. "I cannot go back. I would rather die trying to reach Texas than marry that man." Quinn was quiet for a moment and then he said, "Stay here." "What? Stay here?" he repeated. "At least for a while, until you have recovered your strength and saved enough money to make the journey properly. I could use help around the ranch. I have been managing alone, but there is always more work than I can handle. You could help with cooking, mending, garden work, whatever you are able to do. I will pay you a fair wage and you will have room and board. When you have enough saved, I will help you get to your aunt safely." Katherine stared at him as if he had just offered her the moon. "Why would you do that for a stranger?" "Because it is the right thing to do," Quinn said simply. And because no one should have to run the way you have been running. You need time to heal and regain your strength. This place is isolated enough that you would be hard to find, and I can say honestly that I know nothing if anyone comes asking. Plus, I really could use the help, he added with a small smile, trying to lighten the heavy mood. I do not understand, Katherine said, shaking her head. Men do not just help women without expecting something in return. What is it you want from me? Quinn met her eyes steadily. I want you to feel safe. That is all. I know what it is like to have nowhere to go and no one to trust. Someone helped me once when I needed it, and I am just passing that kindness forward. She studied his face for a long moment, and whatever she saw there must have convinced her because she finally nodded slowly. Just until I save enough for the journey, she said. I will not be a burden longer than necessary. You are not a burden, Quinn said firmly. Now, let me show you to the bedroom. You need proper rest. He led her down the short hallway to the spare room. It was simple but comfortable, with a real bed, a washstand, and a small dresser. He showed her where the lock was on the inside of the door and brought her a clean nightgown that had belonged to his mother before she passed. The water pump is just outside the back door if you want to wash up, he said. There is soap and a towel in the washstand. I will be sleeping in the room across the hall if you need anything, but otherwise I will leave you in peace. Sleep as long as you need in the morning. Thank you, Katherine said, and her voice was thick with emotion. Thank you, Quinn. He nodded and left, closing the door behind him. He heard the soft click of the lock engaging and felt glad for it. She needed to feel secure, and he would do everything in his power to make sure she did. In his own room, Quinn lay awake for a long time, thinking about the woman now sleeping under his roof. He had not been entirely honest with her about his motivations. Yes, he wanted to help her because it was right. Yes, he could use assistance with the ranch work. But there was something else, something he barely wanted to admit even to himself. When he had looked at her in that hay loft, dirty and exhausted and still fighting to maintain her dignity, something had stirred in his chest that he had not felt in years. Maybe ever. He was 26 years old and had spent the last 5 years building this ranch from nothing. He had been so focused on the work, on creating something that was his, that he had not given much thought to loneliness or companionship. But now, with Katherine Dalton sleeping in his spare room, he suddenly felt the emptiness of his house in a way he never had before. Quinn fell asleep thinking about green eyes and dark hair spilling across golden hay. And when he woke in the morning, for the first time in a long while, he felt something that might have been hope. The sun was already well up when Quinn finished his morning chores in the barn. He had deliberately made extra noise, hoping Katherine might wake naturally rather than sleeping until noon from exhaustion. When he came into the house, he found her standing in the kitchen looking uncertain, wearing the nightgown he had given her with her dusty dress draped over one arm. "Good morning," he said, hanging his hat on the peg by the door. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in weeks," she admitted. "The bed was very comfortable. I hope I did not sleep too late." "Not at all," Quinn assured her. "You needed the rest. Are you hungry?" "I can make breakfast," Katherine offered quickly. "You said I could work for my keep, and I am a decent cook." Quinn considered arguing, but he could see the need in her eyes to contribute, to not feel like a charity case. "All right," he agreed. "I will show you where everything is." He walked her through his modest kitchen, showing her the food supplies, the dishes, the cookware. Katherine nodded as she took it all in, and then she shooed him toward the table. "Sit down," she said. "Let me do this." Quinn sat and watched as she moved around his kitchen with growing confidence. She found eggs and bacon, bread for toasting, and she even located the coffee tin without asking. As she worked, he found himself noticing small things about her. The way she hummed softly under her breath, the efficient grace of her movements, the way morning light from the window caught in her hair. When she set a plate in front of him, the food was perfectly cooked. They ate together in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Katherine spoke. "Tell me about the ranch work," she said. "What needs doing?" "Well, I have about 50 head of cattle right now," Quinn said. "I am building the herd slowly. There is fence to mend always, and garden work this time of year with harvest coming in. The chickens need tending, and I have 2 horses that need exercise and grooming. Inside, there is general housekeeping, cooking, mending. I will be honest, I have been living like a bachelor, which means things have gotten a bit neglected on the domestic front." Katherine smiled slightly. "I can handle domestic work. I am not sure how much help I will be with cattle and fences, but I can learn if you are willing to teach me." "We will see what suits you best," Quinn said. "The important thing is that you take it easy for the first few days. You are still recovering your strength." "I am not fragile," Katherine said, a hint of steel in her voice. "I know you are not," Quinn replied. "Anyone who walked as far as you did and survived is tough as nails. But there is a difference between being strong and being foolish. Let yourself heal properly." She studied him for a moment and then nodded. "All right. I can start with the house and garden today if that suits you." "That suits me fine," Quinn agreed. They fell into a routine over the next few days that felt surprisingly natural. Katherine took over the cooking and housekeeping, and Quinn quickly realized just how much he had been living in a state of mild disarray. She cleaned and organized, mended his clothes, and turned out meals that were better than anything he had eaten in years. In the afternoons, she worked in the garden, harvesting the late-season vegetables and preparing them for storage. Quinn found himself making excuses to be near the house more than usual. He would come in for water, or to grab a tool he had forgotten, or to check on something that did not really need checking. Each time, he would find himself watching Katherine, learning the small details of who she was. She sang while she worked, old hymns mostly, in a voice that was sweet and clear. She was kind to the animals, talking to the chickens as if they were old friends. She was smart and asked thoughtful questions about the ranch and how things worked. And slowly, day by day, the haunted look began to fade from her eyes, replaced by something that looked almost like peace. A week after she arrived, Quinn came in for lunch to find Katherine in tears at the kitchen table. He felt a spike of alarm and crossed to her quickly. "What happened?" he asked, trying to keep the worry out of his voice. "Are you hurt?" Katherine shook her head and held up a piece of paper. "I was cleaning out the dresser in my room to organize my things better, and I found this in the back of a drawer. It is a letter. From your mother, I think." Quinn took the paper carefully. It was indeed from his mother, written to him years ago when he had first left home to make his way in the world. He had forgotten it was there, tucked away in the old dresser. "Why are you crying?" he asked gently. "Because it is so full of love," Katherine said, wiping her eyes. "She tells you how proud she is of you, how she knows you will do great things. My mother died when I was young, and my father never spoke to me the way your mother wrote to you. Reading it made me realize what I missed, what I will never have." Quinn sat down beside her, an ache in his chest. "I am sorry," he said quietly. "I lost my mother 4 years ago. She was the best person I ever knew. My father passed when I was 16, and after that, it was just the 2 of us for a long time. She supported my dream of having my own ranch, even though it meant I had to leave her. She died before she could see this place finished, which is one of my biggest regrets." "She would be so proud of what you have built," Katherine said, looking at him. "And she would be proud of the man you are. You have shown me more kindness in a week than my own father showed me in years." Their eyes met and held, and Quinn felt something shift between them, something warm and dangerous and terrifying. He cleared his throat and stood up. "I should get back to work," he said. "I have fence to mend on the south pasture." "Quinn," Katherine said, and he turned back. "Thank you for everything." He nodded and left before he could do something foolish like take her hand or say something he had no right to say to a woman who was only staying temporarily, who was still healing from another man's cruelty. But as he worked in the afternoon heat, he could not stop thinking about her tears, about the way she had looked at him, about how right it felt to have her in his house and in his life. 2 weeks became 3, and 3 became 4. Katherine grew stronger and more confident. Her skin, which had been pale and drawn when she arrived, now had color from working outside. She smiled more, laughed at Quinn's jokes, and seemed to settle into the rhythm of ranch life as if she had been born to it. They talked more, sharing stories of their pasts in the evenings after the work was done. Quinn told her about growing up poor, about his father's death, and how he and his mother had struggled but always had each other. He told her about saving every penny for years to buy this land, about his dreams of building a ranch that could support a family someday. Katherine told him about her mother's death when she was 7, about growing up with a father who saw her as property rather than a person. She told him about the books she loved to read, about her secret dream of teaching school someday, about the feeling of being trapped in a life she never chose. One evening in mid-October, they were sitting on the porch after dinner, watching the sun set over the hills. The air was cool and crisp, and Katherine had wrapped herself in a shawl Quinn had found for her. "I have saved almost enough," she said quietly. Quinn's heart sank, though he kept his expression neutral. "Enough for what?" "For the journey to Texas. You have been more than generous with my wages. Another 2 weeks, maybe 3, and I will have enough to buy passage on a stage and have a little left over when I arrive." "I see," Quinn said, his voice carefully controlled. "Is that what you want, to go to Texas?" Katherine was quiet for a long moment. "I do not know," she finally admitted. "My aunt was the only family I could think of who might help me. But being here, I have realized I do not actually know her very well. She might not even remember me. And if I am honest, the thing I was running toward was never really Texas. It was just away from St. Louis." "And now?" Quinn asked, his heart beating harder. "Now I am not running anymore," Katherine said, turning to look at him. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I am exactly where I am supposed to be." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Quinn wanted to reach for her, to tell her she never had to leave, but he held back. She needed to make her own choices, to be free to decide her own path without pressure from him. "You are welcome to stay as long as you want," he said instead. "There is always work, and I have gotten used to having company. The house feels less empty now." "Is that the only reason?" Katherine asked, and there was something in her voice that made Quinn look at her more sharply. "What do you mean? Is the house the only thing that feels less empty?" she asked, meeting his eyes. "Because I have felt something changing between us these past weeks, and I need to know if I am imagining it." Quinn's breath caught. He could deflect, could pretend he did not know what she meant, but he was not a man for dishonesty. "No," he said. "You are not imagining it." "Then tell me," Katherine said. "Tell me what you are feeling, because I am feeling things I have no right to feel, things I should not feel so soon after escaping from another man, but I cannot seem to help it." Quinn stood up and paced to the edge of the porch, running a hand through his hair. "I am feeling things I have never felt before," he admitted. "From the first night I saw you in that hay loft, something in me recognized something in you. These weeks with you here, they have been the best weeks of my life. I wake up looking forward to seeing you at breakfast. I find excuses to come to the house just to hear your voice. I lay awake at night knowing you are sleeping just across the hall, and I think about what it would be like if things were different, if you were here by choice and not necessity, if I had the right to care for you the way I want to." Katherine stood and crossed to him, and when she touched his arm, Quinn felt the contact like electricity. "You do have the right," she said softly. "Quinn, look at me." He turned, and the expression on her face made his heart race. "Katherine, I am not running anymore," she repeated. "And I am not staying just because I need shelter or wages. I am staying because somewhere in these past weeks, this stopped being a temporary refuge and started being home. You make me feel safe, but more than that, you make me feel valued. You listen when I speak. You ask my opinion. You treat me like an equal, like someone worthy of respect. I did not know men could be like you." "Not all men are like your father or your former fiancé," Quinn said, bringing his hand up to cup her cheek carefully, giving her every chance to pull away. "Some of us believe women are people, not property." Katherine leaned into his touch, and Quinn felt something in his chest crack open. "I am falling in love with you," she whispered. "I know it is too soon. I know I should be more careful, but I cannot help it." "It is not too soon," Quinn said, his voice rough with emotion. "I am already in love with you. I think I have been since the moment I saw you sleeping in my hay loft and looking like you carried the weight of the world but refused to let it break you." "Then kiss me," Katherine said. "Please, Quinn, kiss me and make this real." He lowered his head slowly, giving her time to change her mind, but she rose on her toes to meet him halfway. When their lips touched, it was soft and careful, a question and an answer all at once. Katherine made a small sound and wrapped her arms around his neck, and Quinn pulled her closer, deepening the kiss. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Quinn rested his forehead against hers. "Stay," he said. "Not as hired help. Not temporarily. Stay as my partner, my equal. Stay because you want to build a life here with me." "Yes," Katherine said without hesitation. "Yes, I will stay." They stood there on the porch, wrapped in each other's arms as the stars came out overhead, and Quinn felt as if every hard moment of his life had led him to this perfect one. The next morning, Quinn woke with a sense of purpose he had never felt before. He found Katherine already in the kitchen, making breakfast, and when she saw him, her face lit up with a smile that made his heart race all over again. "Good morning," she said, and there was a new warmth in her voice, an intimacy that had not been there before. "Good morning," he replied, crossing the kitchen to kiss her gently. It still felt new and miraculous, the fact that he could do that now, that she welcomed his affection. Over breakfast, they talked about practical matters. Katherine was still technically living in the spare room, and Quinn wanted to do things properly. He did not want there to be any question about her reputation or his intentions. "I want to marry you," he said bluntly. "Not right away, not until you are ready, but I want you to know that is where my heart is. I am not interested in anything less than forever with you." Katherine reached across the table and took his hand. "I want that too," she said, "but you are right that we should take some time. I need to be sure that what I am feeling is not just gratitude or relief at being safe. You deserve better than that." "You are already sure," Quinn said with certainty. "I can see it in your eyes, but I understand the need to let time pass, to let yourself trust that this is real. We will wait as long as you need." "Thank you," Katherine said, "for understanding." They agreed that Katherine would continue to stay in the spare room until they were married, to avoid any impropriety. Quinn knew there would be talk once people in town learned about her presence, but he did not care. He would protect her reputation as fiercely as he would protect her safety. A few days later, Quinn took Katherine into Eureka Springs to buy her some proper clothes and supplies. She had been making do with the one dress she had arrived in and some old things of his mother's that he had found in a trunk. But she needed her own things. The trip to town made Quinn nervous. He worried someone might recognize Katherine, that her father or former fiancé might have spread word to be looking for her. But she assured him that she looked different enough now, healthy and happy rather than desperate and running, that it was unlikely anyone would connect her to any description that might have been circulated. Still, he stayed close to her as they moved through the general store, and he noticed the curious looks from the townspeople. Eureka Springs was small enough that everyone knew everyone, and a new woman with Quinn Vaughn was definitely noteworthy. Mrs. Peterson, who ran the store with her husband, was particularly interested. "Well, Quinn Vaughn, are you going to introduce me to your companion?" she asked with barely concealed curiosity. "This is Miss Katherine Dalton," Quinn said politely. "She is staying at the ranch and helping me with the domestic work." "Is that so?" Mrs. Peterson said, her eyes sharp with speculation. "And where did you come from, Miss Dalton?" "St. Louis," Katherine said smoothly, her voice calm. "But I was looking for a change, and Mr. Vaughn was kind enough to offer me employment." "How fortunate for you both," Mrs. Peterson said, though her tone suggested she thought there was more to the story. Quinn bought Katherine 3 new dresses, a warm coat, sturdy boots, and various other necessities. He also bought fabric so she could sew more clothes if she wanted. Katherine protested the expense, but Quinn was firm. "You are going to be my wife," he said quietly when they were alone for a moment. "Let me provide for you. It makes me happy to do it." Her eyes softened and she nodded, letting him have this. On the way back to the ranch, Katherine was quiet, looking out at the passing landscape. "People will talk," she finally said. "About us, about me living on your ranch." "Let them talk," Quinn said. "I am not ashamed of anything we are doing. You are working for wages and living in my spare room with a lock on the door. There is nothing improper about it, and even if there were, I would not care. My opinion is the only one that matters on my own property. You are not worried about your reputation." "My reputation will survive," Quinn said. "What I am worried about is you. If the talk bothers you, we can marry sooner. I do not want you to feel uncomfortable." Katherine considered this. "Let us wait until spring," she finally said. "That will be 6 months from when I arrived, long enough to be respectable, long enough to be sure. And it will give me time to make a proper wedding dress." "Spring it is," Quinn agreed, though privately he thought he would marry her tomorrow if she would have him. As autumn deepened into winter, Quinn and Katherine's relationship deepened as well. They worked side by side during the day and spent the evenings talking, playing cards, reading aloud to each other. Quinn taught Katherine to ride properly, and she turned out to have a natural seat on a horse. He showed her how to help with the cattle, how to rope and brand, and she threw herself into learning with enthusiasm. In turn, Katherine taught Quinn things he had not realized he was missing. She brought culture to the ranch, reading poetry aloud in the evenings, teaching him about art and music, expanding his world beyond just work and survival. She made the house a home, adding small touches like curtains and tablecloths, planting bulbs for spring flowers, creating beauty where before there had only been function. The first snow fell in early December, and Quinn worried about Katherine, about whether she was warm enough, whether she was happy or feeling trapped by the isolation. But she seemed to love the quiet beauty of the ranch under snow, and she delighted in building a snowman and having snowball fights with him like a child. "I have never been this happy," she told him one evening as they sat by the fire. "I did not know life could be this peaceful." "I am glad," Quinn said, pulling her close to his side. They had grown more physically affectionate as time passed, holding hands, sitting close, stealing kisses when the mood struck. But Quinn was always careful to respect boundaries, to never push for more than Katherine was ready to give. One cold night in January, a knock came at the door near midnight. Quinn woke immediately, his instincts alert. Katherine appeared in her doorway, wrapped in a shawl, her eyes worried. "Stay in your room and lock the door," Quinn said quietly, reaching for the rifle he kept by his bed. "Quinn, please, Katherine, just until I know who it is." She nodded and disappeared back into her room. Quinn heard the lock click as he made his way to the front door. "Who is there?" he called without opening it. "Marshal Calhoun from Eureka Springs," came the reply. "I need to speak with Quinn Vaughn." Quinn relaxed slightly but kept the rifle close as he opened the door. Marshal Calhoun was a good man, honest and fair. He would not come out here at night without good reason. "Marshal," Quinn said, "what brings you out at this hour?" "I need to ask you about the woman staying with you," the marshal said, stamping snow off his boots. "Katherine Dalton. There has been an inquiry about her." Quinn's blood ran cold. "What kind of inquiry?" "A man came through town today, a Pinkerton detective hired by a family in St. Louis. The Daltons said their daughter ran away and they have been searching for her for months. He had a description, and Mrs. Peterson at the store told him about the woman staying with you. He is staying at the hotel tonight and plans to come out here in the morning to see if she is the woman he is looking for." "I see," Quinn said, his mind racing. "Is she?" the marshal asked. "Is she Katherine Dalton from St. Louis?" Quinn met the marshal's eyes steadily. "She is a grown woman, Marshal, not a child. If her family is looking for her, maybe there is a reason she does not want to be found." "That may be," Calhoun said. "But if she is a missing person, I have to at least verify she is here of her own free will and not being held against her wishes." "I am here of my own free will," Katherine's voice came from behind Quinn. She had come out of her room and now stood in the hallway, her chin lifted defiantly. "And yes, I am Katherine Dalton from St. Louis. I ran away because my father was forcing me to marry a man who was cruel to me. I am not going back." Marshal Calhoun studied her carefully. "Miss Dalton, are you saying you are here voluntarily?" "I am," Katherine said firmly. "Mr. Vaughn found me sleeping in his barn and offered me employment and shelter. He has been nothing but honorable toward me. I am staying by choice, and I am not a missing person. I am a grown woman who left a bad situation." "You are 22 years old," Calhoun said. "According to the information the detective has. Is that correct?" "Yes," Katherine confirmed. "Then legally, you are right. You are an adult, and unless there is evidence of foul play, I cannot compel you to return. But this detective is going to want to speak with you himself, verify you are unharmed. Will you agree to that?" Katherine looked at Quinn, who nodded slightly. She turned back to the marshal. "I will speak with him, but only with Mr. Vaughn present." "That seems reasonable," Calhoun said. "I will bring him out tomorrow afternoon. Miss Dalton, you should know that your father has offered a reward for your return. This detective is likely to try hard to convince you to go back." "I am not going," Katherine said. "No amount of money will change that." After the marshal left, Katherine and Quinn stood in the kitchen, the warmth of the fire not enough to chase away the chill of fear. "I am sorry," Katherine said. "I have brought trouble to your door." "You have brought joy to my life," Quinn corrected. "And I will not let anyone take you away. We will face this together." "What if my father comes himself? What if he tries to force me?" "He cannot force you to do anything," Quinn said firmly. "You are an adult. The law is on your side. And even if it were not, I would protect you. I promise you that." Katherine moved into his arms and Quinn held her tightly, feeling her trembling. "We should marry immediately," he said. "Tonight if possible. If you are my wife, it will be even harder for your father to make any claim on you." "There is no one to perform a ceremony in the middle of the night," Katherine pointed out. Then first thing in the morning before the detective arrives, Marshal Calhoun can do it. He has the authority. Katherine pulled back to look at him. You would marry me like that? Without a proper wedding? I would marry you in the middle of a blizzard in our underclothes if it meant keeping you safe, Quinn said. The wedding is just ceremony. What matters is the commitment, and I am already committed to you for life. Then yes, Katherine said. Let us do it. First thing in the morning. They did not sleep that night, instead sitting together by the fire, talking through their plans. At first light, Quinn rode into town to speak with Marshal Calhoun. The marshal was understanding and agreed to perform the ceremony immediately at his office. By 9 in the morning, Quinn and Katherine stood in the marshal's office, with Mrs. Calhoun and the deputy as witnesses, and spoke their vows. Katherine wore one of her new dresses, and Quinn wore his best shirt. It was not the spring wedding they had planned, not the celebration Katherine deserved, but when the marshal pronounced them husband and wife and Quinn kissed her, it felt more real and right than anything else in his life. Congratulations, Marshal Calhoun said warmly. And I must say, the timing is rather convenient. That is the idea, Quinn said frankly. When does the detective plan to arrive? He said he would come to my office at noon, and I would escort him to your ranch. I imagine he will be surprised by this development. I imagine he will, Quinn agreed. When the Pinkerton detective, a hard-faced man named James Foster, arrived at the ranch that afternoon with Marshal Calhoun, Quinn met them on the porch with Katherine at his side. Mr. Foster, Quinn said with cool politeness. I understand you are looking for Katherine Dalton. I am, Foster said, his eyes going to Katherine. Miss Dalton, your father has been very worried about you. I am no longer Katherine Dalton, Katherine said, holding up her left hand to show the simple gold band Quinn had bought that morning from the jeweler. I am Katherine Vaughn. I married Mr. Vaughn this morning, and this is my home now. Foster's expression hardened. How convenient. Miss Dalton, Mrs. Vaughn, Katherine corrected firmly. Mrs. Vaughn, Foster conceded. Your father hired me to find you and bring you home. He is prepared to pay a substantial sum for your return. My father does not get to decide where I live, Katherine said. I am a grown woman. I left St. Louis of my own free will because he was forcing me to marry a cruel man. I will not go back. Your father says you have always been dramatic and prone to exaggeration, Foster said. He believes you have run away due to pre-wedding nerves, and that once you calm down, you will see reason. My father is a liar, Katherine said bluntly. I did not run away from nerves. I ran away from violence. Ask him about the bruises on my arms from where my fiancée grabbed me. Ask him why he did nothing when I told him I was afraid. Better yet, do not ask him anything because it does not matter. I am not going back. I am married now and my life is here. Foster turned to Quinn. Mr. Vaughn, how long have you known Mrs. Vaughn? Long enough to know I want to spend my life with her, Quinn said. Months, weeks, Foster pressed. That is none of your business, Quinn said. We are legally married. You can verify that with Marshal Calhoun. My wife is not being held against her will. She is here because she chooses to be. I will need to report this to Mr. Dalton, Foster said. He may not accept this. He will have to, Katherine said. I am not a piece of property he can reclaim. I am a person, and I have made my choice. Marshal Calhoun stepped forward. Mr. Foster, I have verified that the marriage is legal and that Mrs. Vaughn is here voluntarily. There is nothing more you can do. I suggest you return to St. Louis and inform Mr. Dalton that his daughter is well and married and does not wish to have contact with him. Foster clearly was not happy, but he could see he had no legal ground to stand on. Very well, he said stiffly. But I will tell Mr. Dalton everything. He may come himself. If he does, he will not be welcome on my property, Quinn said. And if he tries to take my wife against her will, I will defend her with every means at my disposal. The threat was clear, and Foster nodded curtly before leaving with the marshal. When they were alone, Katherine sagged against Quinn with relief. Is it really over? The legal part is, Quinn said. Your father might still make trouble, but he cannot force you to do anything now. You are my wife, and this is your home. No one can change that. Your wife, Katherine repeated, wonder in her voice. I am your wife. You are, Quinn confirmed, turning her to face him. I know this is not how you wanted this to happen. I am sorry you did not get the wedding you deserved. I got what mattered, Katherine said, reaching up to touch his face. I got you. The rest is just details. That evening they sat together on the porch despite the cold, wrapped in blankets and each other's warmth. The threat of her father loomed, but for now, they were safe, legal, bound together in a way that made Katherine truly Quinn's under the law. I wish things could have been different, Katherine said quietly. I wish I could have come to you free and clear, without all this trouble and fear. If things had been different, we might never have met, Quinn pointed out. I would not change that for anything. Yes, I wish you had not had to suffer, but your suffering brought you to my hay loft, and I cannot regret that. I do not regret it either, Katherine said. Even the hard parts led me here to you, to this life. I would walk every mile again if I knew you were at the end of it. Quinn kissed her gently, and then with growing passion, and Katherine responded in kind. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Quinn said roughly, We should go inside. It is cold out here. It is our wedding night, Katherine said, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of nervousness and desire. We are married now. We can share a room. Are you sure? Quinn asked. I do not want you to feel pressured. I know this all happened so fast. I am sure, Katherine said. I love you, Quinn. I want to be your wife in every way. Quinn stood and lifted her in his arms, making her laugh as he carried her inside. He took her to his room, their room now, and laid her gently on the bed. He lit a lamp with trembling hands, nervous despite his experience because this mattered in a way nothing else ever had. I love you, he said, kneeling beside the bed so his face was level with hers. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me. I could never regret it, Katherine whispered, pulling him down to her. They made love slowly, carefully, Quinn treating her like something precious and fragile despite her assurances that she was not. When she gasped his name and held him close, Quinn felt complete in a way he never had before, as if he had been missing a piece of himself and had finally found it. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Katherine's head on Quinn's chest, his arms wrapped securely around her. Are you all right? He asked softly. I am perfect, Katherine said. I have never felt safer or more loved in my entire life. Good, Quinn said, because I plan to make you feel that way every single day for the rest of our lives. Winter passed into spring, and no one came from St. Louis. Katherine relaxed more each day, beginning to truly believe that she was free, that her father had accepted her decision, or at least decided pursuing her was not worth the effort. Quinn and Katherine settled into married life with surprising ease. She moved her things into his room, their room, and they fell into new rhythms of work and rest. Quinn taught Katherine everything about running the ranch, and she proved to be a quick learner and a capable partner. She was not afraid of hard work or getting dirty, and she had good instincts with the animals. In April, Katherine realized she was pregnant. She told Quinn one evening after dinner, nervous about his reaction even though she knew he wanted children. Truly? Quinn asked, his face lighting up with joy. We are going to have a baby. Yes, Katherine confirmed, smiling at his reaction. Probably in early November, from what I can figure. Quinn let out a whoop of joy and swept her up, spinning her around until she was dizzy and laughing. When he set her down, he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her soundly. "A baby," he said in wonder. "Our baby, Katherine, you have made me the happiest man alive." "You are not worried?" she asked. "It is so soon." "I am thrilled," Quinn said firmly. "I wanted to build this ranch to support a family. Now I am getting one. There is nothing to worry about, only everything to celebrate." He was protective of Katherine throughout her pregnancy, trying to keep her from working too hard, though she insisted she was not fragile and could continue with most of her normal activities. They spent the summer preparing, building a cradle, setting up a nursery in the small third bedroom, gathering supplies. The townspeople of Eureka Springs, who had been suspicious of Katherine at first, gradually warmed to her. She was friendly and kind, and it was clear that she and Quinn were genuinely in love. When word spread that they were expecting, the community embraced them fully, with several women coming to visit Katherine and offer advice and help. In November, on a cold night with snow threatening, Katherine went into labor. Quinn rode frantically to town to fetch the midwife, Mrs. Henderson, and then paced the house anxiously while Katherine labored. It was long and difficult, and Quinn felt helpless listening to Katherine's cries of pain. But when Mrs. Henderson finally emerged from the bedroom holding a squalling bundle, Quinn's fear turned to overwhelming joy. "You have a son," Mrs. Henderson said, beaming. "A healthy, strong boy, and your wife did beautifully. She is tired but well." Quinn rushed into the room to find Katherine propped up in bed, exhausted but smiling, holding their baby. He crossed to her and looked down at the tiny, red-faced infant in her arms. "A son," he breathed. "Katherine, we have a son." "We do," she said softly. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names but never quite decided. Now, looking at his son, Quinn knew. "Robert," he said, "after my father, Robert Vaughn." "Robert," Katherine repeated, smiling. "It is perfect. Hello, Robert. Welcome to the world." Quinn sat on the edge of the bed and put his arm around Katherine, the three of them together for the first time, and he felt his heart overflow with love and gratitude for this woman who had come into his life sleeping in his hay loft and had given him everything he never knew he needed. The years that followed were good ones. Robert grew into a healthy, energetic boy with his mother's green eyes and his father's dark hair. When he was 2, Katherine became pregnant again, and this time they had a daughter, Eleanor, who was gentle and sweet-natured from birth. The ranch prospered under Quinn and Katherine's joint management. They built the herd up to over 100 head of cattle and added more land to their holdings. Quinn hired additional help, young men looking for work, and Katherine became known for her kindness and her excellent cooking. The hired hands ate at the house, and Katherine treated them like family. Life was not without challenges. There were harsh winters and dry summers, cattle disease and market fluctuations. But Quinn and Katherine faced everything together, their partnership growing stronger with each trial they overcame. When Robert was 5, a letter arrived from St. Louis. Katherine stared at it for a long time before opening it, and Quinn stayed close, ready to support her through whatever it contained. It was from a lawyer, informing her that her father had died and left her a sum of money in his will. There was no apology, no explanation, just a notification of the inheritance and instructions for claiming it. "I do not want it," Katherine said immediately. "I do not want anything from him." "It is your money," Quinn said. "You have every right to it, regardless of what you think of him." "Blood money," Katherine said bitterly. "He never apologized, never tried to make things right. He just dies and thinks money will fix things." "It will not fix anything," Quinn agreed. "But it could be useful. We could expand the ranch or save it for the children's futures." Or if you truly want nothing to do with it, we could donate it to charity, help other women in situations like you were in. Katherine considered this and finally nodded. That is a good idea. Let us use it to help others. There must be a women's shelter somewhere, or an organization that helps women escape bad situations. The money can do some good in the world, even if it came from a bad place. They did exactly that, donating the money to a women's aid society in Little Rock that helped women leave abusive situations and start new lives. Katherine wrote them a letter explaining why she was giving the donation, and they wrote back with deep gratitude, telling her the money would change dozens of lives. Good, Katherine said when she read their response. That is what it should do. My suffering should mean something beyond just my own story. As the children grew, Katherine and Quinn taught them the values that mattered: kindness, hard work, integrity, respect for others regardless of station. Robert grew into a responsible young man who loved the ranch and wanted to take it over someday. Alina was interested in teaching, like her mother had once dreamed of being, and they encouraged her. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Quinn took Katherine back to the spot where the original ranch house had stood. He had built a new, bigger house 5 years ago to accommodate their growing family, and the old house was now used for storage. You remember the first night I brought you here? Quinn asked, holding her hand. I remember thinking you must be insane or a saint to help a complete stranger, Katherine said, smiling. I remember being terrified but also feeling the first spark of hope I had felt in weeks. I remember thinking you were the most beautiful thing I had ever seen, even covered in dirt and exhausted, Quinn said. I remember knowing my life was about to change, even though I did not understand how. Did you imagine this? Katherine asked, gesturing to the prosperous ranch, the house full of children's laughter, the life they had built. When you found me in the hay loft, did you imagine we would end up here? No, Quinn admitted. I imagined helping you get to Texas and maybe never seeing you again. I imagined wondering for the rest of my life what happened to the woman with green eyes who slept in my barn. I never imagined getting to keep you. You did not keep me, Katherine corrected gently. I chose you. Every day I choose you. And I choose you, Quinn said, pulling her into his arms. Every day, for the rest of my life, I choose you. They kissed there in the fading sunlight. Two people who had found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and built something beautiful together. Years continued to pass in their usual way, bringing both joys and sorrows. Quinn's health remained strong well into his 50s, though Katherine noticed he moved a bit slower, tired more easily. She teased him gently about getting old, though she saw the silver threading through her own dark hair in the mirror. Robert married a local girl, Sarah, when he was 24, and they moved into a house Quinn helped him build on the far side of the ranch property. They gave Quinn and Katherine their first grandchild a year later, a boy they named Quinn after his grandfather. Katherine cried when she held him for the first time, overcome with gratitude for the life she had been given. Alina pursued her dream of teaching and took a position at the school in Eureka Springs. She married a kind man named Thomas who worked at the bank, and they built a life in town while remaining close to the ranch and family. Katherine sometimes thought about her life before Quinn, about the scared young woman who had run away in the night with nothing but determination and desperation. That woman felt like someone from a different lifetime, so removed from who Katherine had become. She had found not just safety with Quinn, but purpose, partnership, and a love so deep it still sometimes took her breath away. On a warm summer evening when Katherine was 52 and Quinn was 56, they sat on the porch of the house they had built together, watching their grandchildren play in the yard. There were 4 now, with Alina pregnant with her second child. You ever regret it? Quinn asked suddenly. Running away, ending up here. Your life might have been easier if you had stayed in St. Louis, found some way to break the engagement properly. Easier, Katherine repeated, looking at him in surprise. Quinn, my life might have been many things if I had stayed, but easier is not one of them. I would have been miserable, trapped, slowly dying inside. Instead, I took a chance on myself and it brought me to you. How could I possibly regret the best decision I ever made? I just want to be sure you are happy, Quinn said. That you do not feel like you settled for less than you deserved. Katherine took his hand, rough and calloused from decades of hard work, and pressed it to her cheek. I did not settle, she said firmly. I found everything I ever wanted and things I did not even know to want. I found a partner who treats me as an equal. I found work that matters and land I love. I found children and grandchildren, community and purpose. Most of all, I found you. You, Quinn Vaughn, who saw a desperate woman in a hay loft and offered not just shelter but a future. You gave me my life back and then you built a new one with me. How could that possibly be settling? Quinn's eyes were suspiciously bright as he pulled her close. I love you, he said roughly, more now than ever, and I did not think that was possible. I love you too, Katherine said. Every single day I love you more. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, listening to their grandchildren's laughter, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived and a love that had endured. Robert took over more of the ranch work as Quinn slowed down, and Quinn found he did not mind stepping back. He had built something that would outlast him, something his son could build on further. That was more than he had ever hoped for when he first bought this land as a young man. Katherine continued to work in her garden and manage the household, but she also took on a project close to her heart. She began writing to other women who had left difficult situations, offering advice and encouragement. Word spread through the network of women's aid societies, and she found herself corresponding with dozens of women across several states. She told them her story, how she had run and found safety and built a new life, and she encouraged them to believe they could do the same. You are giving them hope, Quinn said one evening, watching her write yet another letter by lamplight. I am giving them what someone gave me, Katherine said. The belief that there is something better out there, that they deserve more than cruelty and control. You gave yourself that, Quinn pointed out. You made the choice to run. You did the hard work of starting over. But you gave me a place to land, Katherine said. Without you, I might have died on the road or been forced to go back. Every woman needs a place to land, someone who will help without expecting payment or control in return. I am trying to help create more places like that. Quinn felt proud of his wife, of her strength and compassion, of the way she turned her pain into purpose. She was remarkable, and he told her so often. When Quinn was 62, he suffered a heart episode that frightened them all. He recovered, but it was a reminder of mortality, of the fact that their time together, however blessed, was not infinite. Katherine became even more attentive, and Quinn complained good-naturedly about being smothered while secretly loving her concern. I am not ready to leave you yet, he told her one night as they lay in bed together, her head on his shoulder as it had been for decades. Good, Katherine said. Because I am not ready to let you go. We still have years ahead of us, Quinn Vaughn. Years of grandchildren and sunsets and quiet mornings. Promise me something, Quinn said. Anything. If I go first, promise me you will keep living. Really living, not just existing. You have so much more to give the world. Only if you promise the same, Katherine countered. If I go first, you keep living. You do not just shut down and wait to follow me. Deal, Quinn said, sealing it with a kiss. But as it happened, neither of them had to face that particular sorrow for many more years. They both lived into their 70s, blessed with health and happiness, surrounded by family and the fruits of their labor. On Catherine's 75th birthday, the family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. There were children and grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren now, the house bursting with noise and love. Katherine looked around at all of it, at the life she and Quinn had created together, and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. That evening, after everyone had left and it was just the two of them again, Quinn and Katherine sat on the porch in their rocking chairs, holding hands in the darkness. "Do you remember what I told you that first night?" Quinn asked. "When I found you in the hay loft, you told me I was on your property and you needed to know who I was," Katherine recalled with a smile. "After that," Quinn said, "I told you that you could stay in my house, that you would be safe. I offered you my bedroom." "You did," Katherine agreed. "You offered me your bedroom and moved into the spare room yourself because you wanted me to feel secure." "I offered you my bedroom," Quinn repeated. "But what I really wanted to offer you, even then, was my heart. I was just too practical to say it to a stranger, but I think part of me knew, even that first night, that you were going to be the most important person in my life." Katherine squeezed his hand, feeling tears prick her eyes. "You offered me both," she said, "your bedroom and your heart, and I took both gratefully and have cherished them every day since." "No regrets?" Quinn asked. "Not a single one," Katherine said firmly. "You, Quinn Vaughn, are the best thing that ever happened to me. Finding you, loving you, building this life with you, it is all more than I ever dreamed possible when I was running scared through the darkness." "You were never just running," Quinn said. "You were running towards something, even if you did not know it yet. You were running toward us, toward this life, toward home." "I was running toward you," Katherine agreed. "I just did not know your name yet." They sat there under the stars, two people who had found each other in the most unlikely way and had built a love story that would echo through generations. Their children would tell their children about how Grammy Katherine had been sleeping in the hay loft when Grandpa Quinn found her, how he offered her his bedroom and ultimately his heart, how their love had been the foundation of everything the family became. It was a story of kindness meeting desperation, of courage meeting opportunity, of two hearts recognizing each other even in the darkest circumstances. It was a story of the Wild West, of hard times and harder choices, of survival and hope. But most of all, it was a love story, pure and simple. A story of two people who chose each other, who built something beautiful together, who proved that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. As they rocked together in the darkness, neither spoke of the future or worried about how much time they had left. They simply existed in that perfect moment, grateful for every day they had been given, for every choice that had led them to each other. Katherine had been sleeping in the hay loft. Quinn had found her and offered his bedroom. But in the end, he had offered so much more than that. He had offered her freedom, partnership, respect, and a love that had lasted a lifetime. And she had accepted, building with him a legacy that would outlast them both. The stars wheeled overhead as they had for millennia, indifferent to human joy and sorrow. But on that porch in Arkansas, two people who had beaten the odds sat together in perfect contentment, their hands clasped, their hearts full, their story complete and beautiful and forever intertwined. It was everything a love story should be, and more than either of them had dared to hope for on that September night so many years ago when a desperate woman and a kind cowboy's paths had crossed in a hay loft and changed both their lives forever. They had found in each other not just love, but home, and that made all the difference.